In this video, we're gonna talk about the dumb shit that I have done so you don't ever have to feel dumb when you do dumb shit.
You play to win the game. Hello?
You will not win, cause I will not lose. Can't be touched.
So why are we talking about dumb shit that I've done? We're talking about dumb shit I've done because everyone does dumb shit. And as I move through this consulting process and just try and see if I'm actually any good at this, what I want to be able to do is relate to everyone. I want to be a partner to everyone. I want to be somebody that people can relate to. And I certainly don't have it all figured out. And man, I've done some really dumb things. One of the very first things I ever did, one of the very first lessons I ever got in this industry, I bought my first shop 10 years ago, 11 years ago, whatever it ends up being at this point. And I'm in there, I'm like 3-4 months in, and I'm thinking I'm doing good and everything's going great. And my dad comes in and he walks in and he's like, hey, let me see your bills. And we're kind of going through the bills. And he's like, son, where's he's literally holding the ticket in his hand. And he's like, son, where's the labor? Like, how come there's no labor on your bill? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, you got to have labor. How come some have labor and some don't? And I'm like, Dad, well, the pads and the rotors were $250. The parts cost. I mean, why would I charge that person labor? $250 is enough, right? And my dad's just looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? But this is the stuff, like, I had no idea. I just kind of said, there's an opportunity. I bought a shop and I didn't know what I was doing and I had no clue. And I wasn't really into asking either, as a side note. When you're 24, you think you know a bunch of stuff. So that story kind of ends like my dad gets mad at me, I get mad at him, like don't tell me what to do, even though I was the complete asshole who had no idea what he was doing and my dad was trying to help. He kind of leaves. I make some phone calls the next day and I'm like, hey, I'm like calling repair or parts stores and I'm like, hey, what's the going rate for brake job? How much labor? And they're like, oh, like $80, $90, $100. And I'm like, oh, so the parts plus the labor. Got it. At this point in my life, right, I can call my dad, I can laugh, I can joke, I can make fun of myself about that, but I had no clue. I literally had no clue that for every job, and maybe not every job, but 95% of the work you do, man, there's going to be labor and there's going to be parts, and those are two separate things. Together, they're considered the service, but most states, certainly in Michigan, you have to itemize each one of those. I just had no idea. I didn't even know I should be charging it. That's how little I knew the day I walked into the industry. And I just got my butt kicked for a long time. So it's just a relatable story. I've done all sorts of other things that are maybe worse than not charging for labor. I didn't know the tool truck existed. So I thought you bought all of your tools from Craftsman because I was working by myself. And by Craftsman, I mean you went to Sears. I didn't know that specialty tools existed. I'm fixing cars and I'm thinking, my goodness, there's no way I want to do this forever if this is all the tooling that I get. Because this job's really, really hard. I just had no idea. I didn't know the tool truck existed, and I didn't know the tool truck existed because the people that were in my shop before me told them never to come around. So I just didn't know. The first 2 years I sat there with my Craftsman little tool set fixing cars thinking, this is it, huh? This is really, really tough. I dropped a car off a hoist. I didn't really know how to set a hoist real well. So I literally got the customer standing next to me. I'm standing at the rear wheel. He's standing at the rear wheel. And next thing you know, I finally figured out what the problem was. I was so excited. I brought the customer out. We're standing next to the car. I'm zipping off the tire to show him what it was. I literally, this is how perfectly balanced the car was. I took the rear tire off and the car literally nosedived off the front of the hoist from, however, I'm 6'3". So I don't know, that car was probably 4 foot high. I literally had a car wedged against the hoist completely vertical in my shop. I had no idea. I just didn't know anything. And I just learned stuff by trial, by experience, by reading. So again, back to what's the point of this video? It's to relate. It's to say we've all done dumb things. We've all been in that spot where we're like, oh, that's embarrassing. That's really, really embarrassing. I tell people that I didn't charge labor and they look at you and they laugh and you're like, I didn't know. So don't ever be ashamed. Never be ashamed that you don't know something. What you should always be ashamed of is that when you realize you don't know something, that you're not willing to work to figure out what it is or figure out what you need to do or figure out what you need to change, that's what you should be ashamed of. That's what you should be embarrassed about. But don't ever be embarrassed because you don't know something. Don't ever behave like when you're born, you just know everything, because you don't. And when you're 24, you just think you know everything and you want to argue with your dad. So don't do that, and always charge labor.